Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm coming to you today to show you how to play with some new StormDuo beads, as well as some DropDuos if you haven't checked those out. We're going to be making the StormDuo Medallion Pendant, and I happen to be wearing that. It's a nice pendant with the StormDuos in the middle, and then has a nice 12mm Rivoli that you can drop in the middle there. The fun thing is you can drop in a couple different sizes. You can use different beads around the outer edge. I'll be teaching you how to do the netting around the crystal, how to work with the StormDuos and form them in the correct direction, how to alternate and step up from the StormDuos to the DropDuos, as well as how to create a bail along the top, and then finish off our thread in order to put your pendant onto some chain and establish this beautiful medallion design that you can wear and have fun creating. If you need any of the materials, you can purchase from them at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. Right below the video here, right underneath me, is a little publish date that says when the video was created, and it'll list for you all the different materials that are used in the video, including the StormDuos and those DropDuos, as well as the crystals and then the seed beads to go along with it. So check that out below me here in the video and get the links to purchase from us online. To get started, I want you to kind of lay out all of your beads on a nice bead mat and get ready with a needle and some thread to begin to design the fun StormDuo Medallion Pendant. Once you get your thread on your needle, and we want about 4 feet of thread, you want to add a stop bead. The stop bead is a bead that is going to come off the project, but is going to stop the thread from coming, or stop the beads from coming off the thread. I'm going to leave about 2 inches after that stop bead, just enough to hold on and to actually tie off to. The needle and thread, when you add the stop bead, goes up away from that tail of thread 2 times. That's going to expose some of that thread on the outer edge. Again, it'll come off so you won't see it. Then I didn't want to bore you as I was picking these up, but I wanted to show you the actual design that we're going to add. We're going to be using 6 sets of 2 when it comes to our StormDuos. The StormDuos are going to face one another, that it has an opening at the top and that they're touching on the bottom. To do so, you're going to pick up by the thinner end first and then the thicker end second. This puts them together towards the bottom and then opens them up at the top when they're touching. This pattern gets repeated 6 times with a 15 DropDuo, 15 between it. So on the needle, you pick up 15, a DropDuo through the smaller hole towards the top, a 15, and then facing in those StormDuos through that bottom hole with a smaller end and then going through the thicker end. Again, repeat, 15, small end of the DropDuo, 15. Again, you want those StormDuos facing one another through the smaller end, through the thicker side, and continue on until you have 6 sets of those. From here, we're going to round it out by going back through that 15, drop 15, and I'm going to go the whole way then through the first set of my StormDuos and bring my needle and thread out. This then is going to round out this design, and it kind of looks funky right now sitting. You can push all of your StormDuos towards the outside, and remember our DropDuos are actually going to face in. So the DropDuos will face in, the StormDuos will face out, because we're going to go in and use those DropDuos to catch on to our Rivoli. So if you want to, you can kind of push those in their correct direction. And then what that's going to do is make sure that you have the thread established, and also just do a double check that when you string your 6 StormDuo beads, that you have them, your 6 collections of 2, that you have them facing the correct direction. Because they should sit, that they are kind of fanned out in those groups of 2. From here, we're actually going to establish the crystal in the middle. To do so, and to get that crystal in the middle with the DropDuos holding it in place, we're going to go back through a 15 and one of our DropDuos here. Coming out the DropDuo, we're going to use that as our opportunity to step up to that inner hole or through to the bigger side of that DropDuo. That's going to expose a little bit of thread there on the outer edge. Don't worry about that. You really won't see it once you get your 15 O's established and get that crystal in there. Once you step up to that second hole of the DropDuo, you're going to pick up 3 of your 15 O seed beads and sew into the second hole of the next DropDuo. So right now you're basically just sewing over the StormDuos, not even worrying about them. What this is going to do is force those DropDuos to lay in, which again is going to catch on to our Rivoli. So 3 more 15s go on. Next DropDuo. So you can see that inner row there starting. 3 go on. And you're repeating this the whole way around to all 6 drops. The reason we are doing an odd number, like 3, is because we are going to be grabbing the middle bead as our bead to hold in that Rivoli even more. So sewing around here, come back to the center. We've got 3 more to add. And as I add these last 3 15s, sew through that DropDuo that you started out and sew through the first 2 15 seed beads. Give a nice little tight pull, and ta-da, you can see now the StormDuos want to sit out, and then those DropDuos want to sit in, just like we want them to. That Rivoli then is going to be trapped in by the tops, basically, of these DropDuos there at the top. Coming out that grouping of 2, I want you, because these drops, when we flip this, are going to sit right over top of that Rivoli. What we need to do is kind of create a netting in the back to hold them in place. To do so, add 5 15s. Remember I said we were doing those groupings of 3 in an odd count in order to grab on to that center bead. So now 5 beads are on, and they're going to sit almost like a halo right on the interior of the DropDuo as we continue. 5 beads go on, and those 5 beads then go from the center of one of those groupings of 3 over to the center of the next grouping of 3, and sew through. You can see that little netting effect. So I'm going to continue around adding these 5 15s and catching on to that middle bead in that group of 3 to create that little halo effect that's going to hold in my crystal. If you happen to get the tail thread in there, just pull it out and move it off to the side. As you're doing it too, give a nice tight pull so that way those beads do kind of arch around. So after adding on all of those groups of 5, you can see once we set that 10mm Rivoli right on the top, it just kind of hangs out in there with those drops really almost catching up and kind of doing a step up for that. So that's going to hang out in there. Obviously, if we move it, it drops out the back. So what we're going to do now is after we leave from the front, we are basically going to go to the back. To get to the back, I want you to take your needle after coming through that last central 11-0 from the grouping of 3. And we're going to go down to the 3rd bead, down to the disc duo, to that first inner hole of the disc duo. Take your thread and needle and just punch it to the back. Now we are going to be at the back. So that crystal is going to face down and sit right in that little pocket basically that we have created. And what we're going to do is we're going to catch it in the back. You can, just to show the variance, you can actually put different size crystals into this little pocket and it's going to hold a number of different sizes. What we are going to do is hold it into that front section and have it go right inside that little arching area. To do so and to hold it in the back, you're going to pick up your 8-0 seed beads Because they're larger, they're going to take less time. 3 8/0s go on, and then you're sewing again kind of at that back through the inner hole of the next disc duo. Those 3 beads then, come on, are going to sit in a little triangle. You can see there. So again, 3 beads go on through my next disc or my next drop duo. Make sure they sit in that nice little triangle. You can see that effect happening. And this pendant will basically be reversible too. You know, the back of a lot of the Rivolis are silver, but kind of keep that in mind that you could make this reversible. Keep going around, adding in my 3 8/0s through my drop duos, and as you can guess, you're going around in a circle, so obviously you are going to do this going into every bead. We're going to do this 6 times, just like we've been doing. Dropping those in, making sure they're nice and tight there. And honestly, you can establish, if you like this look better, you can establish this as the front too. That's up to you. On then is your last grouping of 8s, and we're going to sew up to the top of that first grouping of 8s through the first 2 beads. You can see your needle coming out there. I'm going to push those beads in, make sure they sit down. I'm going to drop my Rivoli in place here. And we'll come back and kind of secure the top, or secure the front rather, at the very end. And I'm just going to sew through bead number 2 of all of these groupings of my 8s. So I'm not even worrying about my crystal right now, just sewing through my groupings of 8s. Keep going around, sewing through that grouping of 8s. Once that grouping of 8s is sewn through, you can see all the thread there. Guess what we get to do? We get to give it a nice tight pull. And that's going to force all of those 8s to lay in next to one another. If you happen to notice when you're stringing that you get an oddball, don't include it. Once you have all those groupings of 5, you are going to be coming out one of that center bead, the first one that you put on. We are going to step up basically to encase the back, and I'd switch out to a crystal AB Rivoli. I like that look better with that little bit of pink. And what we're going to do is we're going to trap in the front a little bit more, and then we're going to flip over to the back. So I'm coming out of that center bead, and what I'm going to do is step up to that row of 5, excuse me, that we added. I'm going to sew through, as I go around the loop, the center 3 beads from each grouping of 5. To get there, I'm going to sew through beads 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Going around now in a line, I'm going to skip the first bead, and I'm going to sew through beads 1, 2, and 3. That's going to pull those seed beads in a little bit closer. Oops, and I forgot to add a seed bead. My fault here. In between those rows of 3 that we're doing, we're adding a 15. Pick up the next 3 seed beads in that center row. Pick up a 15. Jump over to that next grouping of 5. Skip the first bead, go through 2, 3, 4. Skipping bead number 5, add a seed bead, skip over bead 1, go to 2, 3, and 4, skipping 5, add a seed bead, skip bead 1, go through 2, 3, 4, add a 15, again, skip the first bead through 1, 2, 3, and I have one more to add. Adding one bead, skipping and going 1, 2, 3. As I go 1, 2, 3, or I'm sorry, through those 3 beads, the 2, 3, and 4, I'm also going to come down that 5th bead because we're done with the top center now. I'm going to come down through that 5th bead, and that netting now for the center is completely done. If you want to, you can take your needle through again one more time, but you can see how it's going to sit, and that's kind of the reason I changed over to that pretty pink one rather than the turquoisey one or the topazy one. It's going to sit right in the middle there. From here then, we are going to go down through one of our beads in the middle grouping of 3, down through the bead after it, and through that disc duo, or the drop duo rather, through the big hole. That's going to get us out of that center row, and now what we're going to do actually is work along the back, and along the back we're going to sit our Rivoli inside there, and that 12mm will sit nicely in there. And we are going to work around the back now to actually establish a line here to hold in that Rivoli. To do so, my thread and needle are coming out of that drop duo there through the center hole. I'm going to progress to the top hole by stepping up, going from the inner hole to the outer hole, or if you're keeping track, through the thin side of that drop duo, and bring my thread and needle out. That's going to make me go then to that back side. Along the back, we're going to skip over the actual, we're going to skip over the StormDuos, and we are going to add some more 15s. The 15s that we add are going to connect the second hole, or that thinner hole of the drop duo. So on are going to go 6 of your 15s, and then you're going to sew through to the drop through that thinner hole. So just kind of like we did in the front where we added 3 beads and then we went back through. You're just going to make sure as you're doing this and as you're establishing that, push those StormDuos to the front, so that way these seed beads that you're adding, these 5 seed beads, now lay, or 6 seed beads rather, now lay along the back end here. On go more seed beads into the next drop. As we come around and do this and establish this, this netting is going to hold my Rivoli in place. Once we get this netting done, it is quick and easy from here. So you can see that's kind of forming that inner row that, again, this is just going to sit right inside of. And then just like we did the front, we're going to come back and kind of grab the center couple beads. So again, going around here, adding your beads as you go around that center line, adding 6 beads on and linking on to the next of your drop duos. And then whole way around, right back till we get to the starting spot. After you do your 6 beads around, it's time to actually close in that back and put our Rivoli in. Just like we did along the front, we're going to grab the middle beads. So coming up the last bead here, we are going to go through the first just to establish the start, and then we're going to go through beads 2, 3, 4, and 5, skipping bead number 6. From here, I'm going to go skipping over, and this time we are not, or we're going to add just 1 seed bead as well, and then we're not going through the first bead. We're going through beads 4, or the middle 4 rather, beads 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, bead on, go through beads 2, 3, 4, and 5. So just like we did along the front, just going through beads 2, 3, and 4. This time, because we have 1 more seed bead on, we're adding a 15, and then we're going through beads 2, 3, 4, 5, skipping beads 1 and 6. Again, add a 15, Go through those there. And you can see I'm not pulling tightly yet because, I need to drop in my crystal. So on goes my last seed bead, or I'm sorry, getting a little bit ahead of myself. Second to last, through my grouping of 4. Last seed bead, skip over that first bead, and through those 4. As I come through the 4, you can see I tend to cup it in my hand, that I put my finger in there to establish that position, drop my crystal in, and I give a nice tight pull. And again, this is going to be semi-reversible, so if you get done and you say, oh, the drop duos really aren't my thing on the front and I'm not crazy about that netting, you can actually turn it around. So I want this here to be in here nice and tight. I don't want it to go anywhere, so I'm going to retrace my steps, going in and re-sewing through all of those 4 central beads and through that bead that I added. So we're going all the way around this circle, getting this in here nice and tight and establishing that central line. Once we have this done, that Rivoli is nice and in place, and that 12mm Rivoli is not going anywhere. We have that 12mm in. You can switch out to a 14 if you want. The sizing is just going to be a little bit different. And then we get to go ahead on the outside and embellish with more of the StormDuos. So coming out here. Remember, you still have that stop bead on. Don't worry, again, that is eventually coming off. So once you get back around that you have all of those on and the Rivoli in place, I'm just going to kind of move those with my fingers, making sure that they're nice and tight. Flipping over to the front, you can see that Rivoli is nice and in there. And you can see those nice little kind of drop duos just sticking up right along the side. From here, it is time to get along the outer row and add in more of my StormDuos. The second row of StormDuos is going to sit in the same fashion with those beads kind of facing one another here. And they're going to sit in, and then they're going to sit out on the outer side. So you can see on the bottom section, they sat so that the bottom curve of the StormDuo is facing out. On the top section, it's going to face in, and then when we get around and add in our little drop at the top, it'll kind of finish it off. You can also, before I establish too much, I'll show you that you can also duplicate the outer edge and have it be the same. So this is kind of just to show you some variation now that that Rivoli is not going anywhere. And you can have the StormDuos. This is the fun of the StormDuos. You can face that second one facing out as well. That'll leave you with a bigger opening. So you can do the bigger opening, or you can do the smaller opening that you're looking through as you create this outer edge of the pendant. When you create that, then you'll have a little bit more room that you can actually include 2 of your drops. If you want to get crazy, you can throw a third one on the outer edge. So learning basically how to establish that Rivoli in there with the StormDuos and the DropDuos, now you get to have fun creating on the outer edge of the pendant. What we're going to do is progress from the inner area here to the outer row. To do so, we're going to go down one of the sides here and get our thread and needle so it's coming out one of the StormDuos. So I'm going to take my needle and thread, go through the 15s along the center here. You can also do this if you're not into the crazy amount of bling that goes on with a lot of these Rivoli projects. We also have a ton of gemstones and resin and beautiful, beautiful size 12mm cabs as well. So check that out. Coming down the side then, I'm going to establish my thread and needle, coming out and working through with the thread and needle from the back side towards the front side, and then getting it so it's coming out my StormDuo along the bottom there. I'm going the whole way through the StormDuo because I'm going to bring the thread and needle out along this side here of the StormDuo. And that's going to create that jump up so that way we can actually bezel around and design around the outer edge here of this Rivoli. Again, it's up to you. You can see those two different designs of bending the StormDuos in towards one another or fanning them out. Just kind of play around with that as you're working with it. I'm going to continue the original design and fan them out. So we're going to add, coming out the center of one of our StormDuos, we're going to add our next two StormDuos, again with the bottoms kind of facing out. And then I'm going to sew on to the next StormDuo from that inner row and just facing them out. Between these here, we're going to add a 15, 8, 15, and then on to the next storm. Onto the next storm. There we go. Again, we're going to mimic again, facing them outward. So I'm going to sew through those StormDuos, adding them in place then, sewing through the next grouping, and as you can guess, we are going to do it 6 times. So there you have your pattern established. Keep going with the 15, 8, 15, sewing into almost that next herringbone style of your StormDuo area, and adding in your next two StormDuos. So finishing up then, I have my thread and needle coming around after adding that 15, 8, 15, and then in those rest of those StormDuos. And I do want to pull tightly because it is going to have a little bit of curvature to have that Rivoli sit up even further. Coming out the center then between the first two StormDuos that you added going around this second row, I'm going to step up from the bottom hole to the top hole. This will conceal the thread on the inside and you won't even see it then. A lot of times we'll do it on the outside, but this way you don't see it at all. On this outer row then that we add, we're going to be adding our DropDuos as well as some 15s and 8s to separate them out. On the outer edge between our StormDuo V's, we're going to be establishing the pattern of 8, 15, DropDuo, through our bigger hole, 15, 8, sew through. And if your thread gets separated like that, just give a nice little pull. And there you go. So that's going to be the outer edge here as we go around. On the inner, the DropDuos are going to face the opposite way. So we're going to add a DropDuo, then a 15, then a DropDuo, and then through that second hole of the StormDuo. And those two are going to sit with a rounded edge facing up. Again, as we work our way around, 8, 15, drop through the big hole, 15, 8, through the next StormDuo. Coming out the StormDuos in the middle then, we are going to reverse the drops, and you're doing a drop, 15, and a drop through the next StormDuo. Again, that's going to pull it a little bit in to the design like we have it going. So I'm going to continue around getting that flourish on the outside of my pendant, adding in my 8s and my 15s, and then alternating the way that the DropDuos are sitting. As you finish up going around, you're going to then step up from the bottom hole of the last DropDuo to the upper hole, exposing a little bit of thread on the outside. What we're going to do is link together basically this outer row and go through the second hole of our disc duos. I have 5 15s on my needle, and I'm going to go from one DropDuo to the next. When I'm out between the two, I'm going to add my 8 and on to the next DropDuo. And that's going to kind of establish that outer line and make that a little bit more substantial there on the outer edge. Again, 5 of my 15s get added. Pick up the next drop. 5 more 15s. And then the next drop. In between the drops at the top of the StormDuos, add the 8. Again, you can add a teardrop too if you want to continue kind of that drop theme. Excuse me. And then our 5 15s. And the whole way around the outer edge like that, adding in the 5 15s and then the 8 above the drops. So from here I have the last of my 5 15s on, and I'm going to bring my needle and thread through the 5 15s and the drop into the 8, and I'm going to bring it out at an 8 in order to make that be where my bail or my pendant can attach to. So the medallion, this StormDuo medallion, is going to hang low on me. It is, you can see I have kind of small hands, but it's a little bit more substantial in size, and because of that I'm going to wear it down low, almost at a 36 inch or an 1/4 inch length. So I'm going to need a loop at the top in order to hang the pendant. So to hang the pendant and to create the loop, there's a number of different ways you can do this. I'm going to go in and actually use 5 of my 15s. Then I'm going to use 3 of my 8s. Then I'm going to use 5 more 15s. And I'm going to take this and sew this into the same side of that last 8-0. It's going to almost kind of create a loop that sits off to the side. I'm going to add 5 more of my 15s, and then I'm going to share my 8s. So I have my 5 more 15s. I'm sharing the 8s, meaning I'm not going to add any more beads. I'm just going through those same 8-0s. And that's kind of the top of my bail. And keep in mind the bail size is going to be determined also by what you are putting into there. So I'm going to put some chain because I want my medallion to hang on a chain. And then I'm going to do 5 more of my 15s and sew back through the 8. At this point I want to give a nice tight pull, and you can see that establishes a nice little bail there. So it's kind of a fun little trick when establishing the bail, that you can have the bail come out from either side of your bead, and you can go in from one side and then into the other. From here then I am going to take my thread and needle and sew it a little bit down that pendant line so I can get it away from the top. This will also work to pull the top a little bit tighter. And then from here, I'm just going to knot off the thread. So I'm going to take the thread, go underneath that line of seed beads, make a loop, and then I'm sewing through that loop in order to tie off the thread. I'm going to do it one more time, and you can do this further behind the pendant if you want, or in the pendant. Do it one more time there. Go in, then I'm going to take my thread and needle, sew a little bit further, which will bring that knot in to some of those beads. Give it a nice little tight pull so you don't really see it at all. Grab your thread zap or your thread burner then. Take that, burn down the thread end, and I can tell my battery's dying on mine, and then burn that down so that it disappears on the inside of a bead. After this, you have left the starter thread. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. With the starter thread, you can take the seed bead off, and you can then tie the thread just like we did on the outer edge. Or if you want to, because of the pendant style and because of that stop bead, you can actually put a needle on and keep the stop bead there. Since it's to the back of the project, you won't see it. Once you tie off the thread into the bottom of the project then, and you have that thread tied off, you can burn down that thread edge again, and then you're going to be done with your StormDuo Medallion Pendant. Once you burn down and knot off the thread edges, you can put some chain on the medallion, hang it on. You can make a second one and make it a pair of statement earrings as well. It's not that heavy because of the size of the Rivoli in the middle, not adding that much weight as well. If you want to build along and make this beautiful StormDuo medallion, you can go to the bottom of the video. Right underneath, there's a little date stamp that says when the video was published, has a published date. Below there, there's a little link link or a down arrow that says click to show more. That'll give you links to purchase from me at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. We're happy to ship you all the fun new products like the StormDuo and the DropDuo as well. And there's a list below there too that says exactly which materials were used, so for your convenience with links attached. As always, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates from us on awesome new products, new designs, and what we think you should know that's going on in the beading world. Stay connected with us on social media. Show us what you make on our Facebook page. Check out our Instagram and our Pinterest page as well, and give us a little thumbs up if you like the video and tell us what you like about it, as well as if you get a chance to, you can even show us what you make. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating and playing around with the StormDuos to make this StormDuo Medallion Pendant.